Hello, it's ukulele time. I'm Ben Eagle, Reader's Advisory Librarian and ukulele teacher. And today we're going to look at bar chords, what they are, and how to play them. So I'll be showing you B flat major, that is, and B minor, B natural minor. Those will be for the key of F, B flat, and the key of D, the B minor. That'll round out some of the chord families we've already learned, or we've already looked extensively at the key of C and G. Now we'll be finishing up some of the chords for F and D. So we'll look at those bar chords, show you how to play them, and we'll do some exercises where you can really get used to those shapes and some of the chord progressions you might be seeing in songs. So we'll move straight ahead with the bar chord shapes. Okay, so a bar chord. What is a bar chord? A bar chord is basically when you have to play more than one string at a time with one finger. So the bar is your finger. It's like a bar laying across the strings or across the frets. So it's a common thing on string instruments. Guitar and ukulele use it a lot. So your finger has to cross more than one string at a time. So all the chords we've looked at so far, we've been using the very tips of your fingers, and I've been clear, use the tips of your fingers when you're playing these chords. So a bar chord is going to break that rule a little bit, where that finger can lay across two strings, so you can't really use the tip of your finger if you're playing two strings at a time. So the bar chords we're going to look at are B flat major, so B flat, and B minor, just regular B natural minor. So a B flat, now I'm showing you both of these because they're going to be one of the most used chords in some of the keys that we play in. You'll use B flat a lot in the key of F, which is a common key to play in on the ukulele. And you'll use the B minor quite a bit in the key of D, which is another common key to play in, which we've covered some of those chords already. So, first off, B flat. B flat is the fourth chord in the key of F major. So that comes from the major scale. F, G, A, B, the fourth chord. So to play the whole chord, there it is on the screen. Your first finger has to cover two strings, you'll notice. The first and second string on the first fret. So that has to lay flat on those two. Then your second finger goes on the third string, second fret, and third finger on the fourth string. Now don't worry if it feels a little clumsy. It's going to if you've never played a chord like this before. Your finger has to bend in a certain way, and it helps a lot when it kind of bends backwards with the joint like that. When you feel it doing that, that's going to be a comfortable position to do those chords where you can still get the tips of your other fingers. So, don't worry if your finger doesn't bend too far back that way. You're going to get used to a way to play it. You can do it without doing that too, if you bend your wrist this way. So what I do, since it's in the key of F, you're probably going to switch that chord from an F, which I'll show you in an exercise here. But you'll notice in the F chord that your first finger is already in place for the B flat chord. So the second string, first fret. So what you're going to do is keep that finger there and then just try to lay it flat to get the string below it too. So it's in this position and then it lays flat. Okay, one more time. I'm in an F chord, so my finger's already here. This finger lays flat, and then these two fingers move to their other positions. Now, it probably will feel clumsy for a while until you get used to doing that transition. So don't panic if you're not getting all those notes real clear. If you can get the top 3 notes to sound clearly without that, your chord will still sound decent. So if you're playing in the key of F, if that note isn't coming through all the way, no need to panic, because these 3 notes are the main notes in that B flat chord. So it'll still sound like a B flat. It just sounds a little more full once your finger is getting that note. Which, the more you play it, the more your fingers will get used to switching to that. And the more nimble your finger will get to where it can cover both those notes at the same time. So, this finger covers those two, and that goes over those. And I've made some exercises to make it easy to make it so you know what to work on to really get that chord down. Okay, that is the B flat chord. Now we're going to look at the B minor natural. So it's not just B flat, it's B natural, and then it's a minor chord on top of that. So B flat to B is moving up 1/2 step. So instead of having the bar chord where we were just playing it, it's happening on the 2nd fret. And then I'll show you what to do to make it minor. So the B flat minor, the B natural minor, happens in the key of D. Now when I say these chords are in a key, each of the keys that we've looked at so far, we've looked at the key of C, G, and we've looked at some chords in the key of D and F. Now each of those chords has a family, as I've discussed before, where there's certain chords that come up often in there because they're in the same scale. So the B minor is built off of the 6th note of the D major scale. So there it is on the screen. And notice now your first finger has to cover the 3 strings, the first 3 strings. So now you're on the 2nd fret, and it's covering those 3. So what I do to get this chord down, you are going to switch from this often from a D major chord. So you can try to do it from that, so your fingers are already in position. So when you have that D major chord, your first finger is already here at the top of that B minor shape. So with your finger there, it's going to lay flat over the 2 below it. So you're covering all 3 of those. Now if you feel pretty comfortable doing that, then what you have to do is reach over with your 3rd finger right there to the 4th string and 4th fret. And you have that shape. Now notice the only difference from the major version is that 2nd finger is gone. So 1 note difference besides the whole shape being moved up here. Okay, so again, if you're in that D major shape, there's the D major chord for reference. You're going going to shift to that shape. So your first finger stays where you have your pointer finger on the third string, and then it lays flat. So from D major to B minor. Okay? Now, we're going to go through some exercises that'll help really get your fingers working out and get them used to going into those different shapes. So let's look at those exercises. Okay, let's go through some examples with these new chords. So, we have, starting on the first exercise in F. Now notice those little symbols in each measure, or at the first measure. There's 4 of them. That just means 4 down strums. Now I just write it out as generic as possible so you can start it out very simple when you're working on new chords. So that just means 4 down strums. But once you feel comfortable with these, you can do any other thing we've worked on. You can do different strumming combinations of down and up. You can do finger picking from what we've done on an earlier exercise, some of those different patterns. You can play it in a different time signature. You can do 3-4 instead of 4-4, so 3 strums per measure. So I'll start it out like this, just as it's written, 4 down strums, and then I'll show you some of those different variations you can do, just give you different ideas to keep these fresh and interesting and fun. So, starting with F, we're going to do 2 measures of that and then 2 measures of B flat, and then just keep switching back and forth just so that your fingers can get the different patterns down. So the first one is just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now take these at whatever speed you feel comfortable with. The key is start out slow enough that those transitions feel smooth so that you can keep that steady beat going. So that when you switch chords, that steady pulse doesn't stop. Now the one below is just switching the chords more regularly, so you could work on that just as easily as the first exercise when these chords are new to you. I just did the first one to give you a little more time before that big chord change. So the second one, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're just switching every measure. Take this slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then notice how my hand switches to that bar chord. My first finger goes flat. Strum of the first chord. That's the key of the song. To know the key of a song, it's often the first chord of a song, not necessarily, but more often than not, it's the ending chord. in most of the exercises I write out, the key is usually the first chord. Okay, so that uses the first chord and the fourth chord of the F chord. Remember, those come from the scale, which I'll go through another method to know all the different chords in a key. We'll do that another time. For now though, just know that these are some of the most common chords in this key that you'll use. So if you're playing in the key of F, it's going to be F, B flat, and then the C, which is in the next exercise. Okay, so this next one uses the C7 chord, which is a chord we've learned. So the C or the C7, both those chords will come up in the key of F. It's the fifth chord in the scale of F. So that's the C chord, and then the C7 is that. So again, we're switching every measure. So we'll have 1. Strum of F, just to finalize it. Okay, now notice when I switch from B flat to C, all my fingers have to move. But when you're switching chords, what you're trying to do is either pivot your finger, so as we did with the F to B flat, this first finger stayed in place. If you can't pivot your finger, meaning like keep one finger that anchors the whole chord, then you just want to try to move with the least movement as possible. So when I switch to this chord, my first finger just has to slide down one string. So when I'm here, and I go there. So the B flat chord to C7. So if you find that switch difficult, just keep working on switching between those two. Anytime you find a chord difficult, try switching back and forth between that and another chord. And then it's in the key of F. So those are some of the most common chords in the key of F. There's one other one we haven't looked at yet, but those are the three that are the most common. The 1 chord, which is F, the 4 chord, which is the B flat, and the 5 chord, which is the C or C7. The other most common chord in a key signature is the 6 chord, which is a minor chord. And we won't be looking at that today. In the next lesson, we'll look at a way to number each of those so you know how to play songs in different keys. We won't look at that today. But those are the three main chords in the key of F. So moving on to the D exercise, this will incorporate the minor chord, the 6th chord, which means it's the 6th note in the scale, is B, D, E, F, G, A, B. So the B minor is the 6th note, or the 6th chord in the key of D. So the D, G, and A are the most common. They're the 1, 4, and 5. But then when you want to play that 6th chord, that common minor chord in the key of D, you'll need a bar chord. So that's the B chord we looked at. Okay, so first exercise is just going back and forth between the D and the B minor chord. So it gives you a little space, 2 measures for each. So remember that D major chord is that cluster of 3 fingers on the 2nd fret. So we have 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, I'm using my 1st finger as a pivot. So on that 1st chord, I use the point of my finger on the D major chord, and it switches over. I do this kind of swinging motion to bring my 3rd finger up and lay this finger flat. So it's okay. And before we look at the last exercise, I just want to reiterate that once you feel comfortable with these, try doing different patterns. You can do different strumming patterns like down, down, up, 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 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So any combination of those, which we've looked at in an earlier lesson, or those finger picking exercises that we did. Oops. 1, 2, 3. Something like that. Or you could do the 3/4 time, which these are all in 4/4. They're written in 4/4, but you can just count 3 instead of the 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Or 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 any of those kind of things, or make up your own. Get creative with these. The important thing is you're just getting used to these chord exercises, because they're just going to help you with any songs you're playing. So we're learning all the different chords in these most common keys on the ukulele, so that you're comfortable playing most popular songs or any other songs. Okay, this last one in the key of D is a common chord progression. I won't go into the details of that this lesson, but we're going to learn the exercise. So it uses all 4 of those main chords in the key of D. So we have D, A, B minor, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice there's a lot more going on with the chord changes there. So when I go from D to A, I'm using my 1st finger as a pivot, but it has to slide back. So I have, then it just slides into that shape. Actually, my 2nd finger is the one that doesn't move. So both of those fingers, so the 2nd's more of a pivot, I guess. But then the 1st one, all it does is slide over. So, okay? And then you have to go from the A to that B minor shape. So your 1st finger is still on the string it needs to be. It just needs to slide forward one. So we have that movement and then that. So, again, if any of these chord transitions are difficult, just work on switching back and forth between the two. Then after the B minor, your first finger's still there, and it goes into the G chord. Thank you for watching this episode on bar chords. They might feel a little awkward at first, but as with any of the other chords, by this point, you'll realize that the more you play them, the more comfortable they'll get for you. And we've already learned a lot of chords so far, and we've learned how to play in the most common keys on the ukulele. Moving ahead, in other lessons, I'll show you how to play in different keys, how to switch, that is, how to play one song in different keys. So you can switch between some of the more common keys on ukulele, and then we'll look at more song examples too. So that is it for ukulele time today. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.